Hi, Bob Later here, and welcome to this episode of Stepping into the River. Today we're going to be working with the quality of sound and where it is. Sound goes everywhere, up and down, side to side, front to back, and everywhere in between. Many times we try to control our sound and put it this way, make it look like this rather than like that. I normally do this exercise with a singer, but what I've decided to show for you today is the same thing applying to a guitarist and how his sound is affected by considering the totality of the world that he's playing in and letting his sound fill that. So please take a listen, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay, catch you shortly. All right, boom, we're on. Check it out. We got your crew, extra eyes, extra ears, and they're here to offer insight and illumination into how you go about playing. And you know our usual stuff. Compare his top half to bottom half, left side to right side. Where is his home? Where does he go when he finishes a phrase? Front half to back half. What you catch about Boone's breathing and where your attention goes when he plays. That's the general stuff, but is there anything specific you'd like them to hone in on that you're working on these days?
Not that I can think
No?
of.
Okay, well then we'll see where it goes then. All right, well, I'm going to go over there and I'll press play and we'll see how it goes. Okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me. All righty then. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Can we do a little bit with projection?
Sure.
Okay. I'm to step over there for a second. And I'm going to face this way. Can you still hear me, Boone?
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can. So the sound goes that way too, right? And the sound goes that way, and the sound goes this way, and the sound goes that way, and the sound goes that way. And believe me, it goes that way also. So you don't have to worry about projecting the sound. The sound, by its very nature, will take care of that. What I think might open some doors for you, especially with the kind of playing that you do, I'm going to do a handstand. Sure. Okay. So what we lose track of a lot of the time is the backside of your heart. You know, and your heart's back here too, and it's, for lack of a better term, it's shining out the back as well as shining out the front. You've got the front covered. You're really, really great on that. And just remember, yes, you shine there, you shine there, you shine here, you shine down there, shine up there. Yeah, you got it
Omnidirectional.
right. Yes, just like a star, right? Because you're a star. And your sound does the same thing, right? And you play through your heart anyway, so it's, ooh, that's beautiful. Wow, 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 wow. I'll go start that again. We'll see how it goes, okay?
What should I be thinking of?
No, just let this roll through you and see what comes out.
Okay.
Okay? Because you like to, you said, as Dickie Beth says, there's some who thinks and some who don't. And you're in the don't realm, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that must be this one. Yeah. All right, Boone, you ready?
Give me a second.
Okay.
That's a beautiful strat.
Thank you. Your name's Sky.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Okay.
Okay? Here we go. What did you see? What did you hear?
This was more of an internal experience for me. I noticed that I got lost in the melody more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I wouldn't have said it that way, but yeah, right. Anybody else? What did you catch?
Everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that really shone through everywhere. Was that a different experience for you?
I feel like I played worse because I was thinking about what she said more and like kind of distracted
Really?
myself.
I think you moved away from technique and more towards communication through your heart. And for me, it was way better. I mean, yeah, you missed a couple of notes, but so what, you know? Oscar Peterson had this great quote. Technique, technique. Everybody learns technique, but you gotta learn how to play. And you were in part 2 there. And I thought you did grand at that, man. I did. If you watch this back, and I hope you do, one thing that this, especially coming back through here, did was the first time through, there was kind of this thing going on. I don't know if you all noticed that, but there was much less of that. And I didn't feel you were above the instrument so much. That this felt much more like an equal. I don't know, Clary, what you saw, but this felt more equal than more top, like you saw the first
This time it's equal.
Yeah. And I think just more of you came through, and I thought it was great. Give him a hand. Hi, welcome back. I really enjoyed this particular session. It's, for me, it was a wonderful example of what I believe the Alexander Technique is all about, which is how you do what you do and who you are when you do it. I referred to Oscar Peterson's quote about learning how to play as well as learning technique. That's how you go about your business. And the change in this player, I think, was remarkable, even though he was a bit focused on technique. There's technique to playing too, as well as just the dexterity and virtuosity for what you have. And the more you can connect to this space above, below, to the sides, in front, and particularly in back of you, the places where you don't see and realize that you're communicating with there as well, things will change for you. I hope that you take this to heart and it works for you. Thanks for being with us this time, and we hope to see you the next time through. Okay, bye for now.